Can I also remind everyone that this is a formal meeting and therefore do not refer to each other by their first names. And also when addressing council, please can you also make sure you stand if you're able. There is no fire alarm to plan, therefore upon hearing a constant two-tone alarm, please leave the building by your nearest marked fire exit and make your way down the stairs to the nearest assembly point, which is a short stay car park. Lifts are not to be used. You do not take time to pick up personal belongings and leave the building promptly. Thank you. Item 1. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair. Received apologies from Councillors Turton, Clayton and Williams, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2. To approve as a correct record of the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of October 2023, pages 11 to 18. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you. Seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay. Item 3, Chair's announcement. I've got this year, or no, next year actually, in February the 10th, I'm actually having, on Saturday, February the 10th, I'm having a Valentine's charity ball. Quite reasonable, we held at the Barnstable Hotel. Beautiful food for those that eat in there, and a fantastic band. So tickets can be purchased from the office, contact Lynn or Bev, and cut-off date is the 27th, I believe, January. Okay, thank you. Item 4, business brought forward by or with the consent of the chair. Don't have any. Item 5, replies to any questions submitted by the public and or to receive petitions under Part 4, Council Procedure Rules, paragraph 89 of the Constitution, none received. Item 6, to consider motions of which notice has been submitted by members in accordance with Part 4, Council Procedure Rules, paragraph 11 of the Constitution, none received. Item 7, declaration of interest.
I've received none, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair.
Councillor Roon?
Just like for, I know there's no decision to be made tonight, but item 10 as an employee of the NHS, just for transparency.
Same.
Same.
Anyone else? Thank you. Item 8, Chair's replies to any questions to Council by members submitted under Part 4, Council Procedure Rules, paragraph 10 of the Constitution, none received. Item 9, to agree the agenda between Part A and Part B. There is no Part B, so go straight on to Part A. Item 10, NHS update, changing contacts and working in partnership, presentation by Catherine Allen, Director of Strategic, Royal Devon University Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. Over to you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you've been staring at the screen for a little while, but my name's Catherine Allen. I know a great many of you, and I'm just really grateful to the council for offering us an item on your agenda. I'm accompanied by Zara Hyde, who is, as you can see, our Director of Estates of the Trust, and also Nicola Brewer, who is the Programme Director. So we've got 3 things to talk to you about: a little bit of stuff about what the NHS is up to, how it's restructuring, and how we can make use of that locally. What we think we could do in partnership with the council, there's some areas of common interest with us. And then I'm going to hand over to Zara, and she's going to give you an update on the new hospital programme in North Devon. Now, does this work? No. Oh, I didn't want to do that. You could just sit there, that'd be great. What did you press?
The arrow.
The arrow. Oh, that one. Yes. Okay, right. So look, I'll keep this first bit brief because structures are quite dull, but they are really important, because it's important that you as councillors understand how we're constituted and what we're here, what our purpose is for. So from 2022, the Health and Social Care Act reformed the NHS and how it's organised into boundaries called integrated care systems. Now, there's two partners to the integrated care system, the NHS and the county councils, or the social care provider, whatever council. So there are 42 in the UK, and you can see Devon is one down in the southwest. There's 4 aims. The first 3 of them you'll probably be expecting to see us say from the NHS: improve population health and healthcare, tackle inequalities, thinking about outcomes, experience, access, how people access their care. A particular challenge of ours now is productivity and value for money. But the 4th one is the one where I think this is a new signal from the NHS, and really this understands the role the NHS plays in helping people remain at work, helping people remain economically active, thinking about the social benefits or the social disbenefits of being ill, isolated, all the rest of it. So this 4th one is new in terms of NHS strategy. So I keep saying it, just hold that one in your head. Within each integrated care system, each one has organised itself into regions, and this is not a surprise. We've got a north, east, south and west one. The Royal Devon University Healthcare Trust covers North and Eastern Devon, so that works quite nicely. So our catchment population services deals with North and East Devon. We are calling them in Devon local care partnerships. So the care partnership that covers you is the North Devon Local Care Partnership. And what that does, what in time that will do over the next 5 to 10 years, is devolve decision-making and budgets from the Devon Central down into a local area, so that you make local decisions as close to the local population as possible. That's the idea. We're quite far away from it at the moment because they're only just established a year ago, but that is the intention. And I think it's one we probably can all support. And the idea is that as LCPs grow, they accrue more partners. So at the moment, the statutory partners are health and social care. But as I'll come on to explain, we're already in North Devon benefiting from really strong partnerships through North Devon Futures, through the task force in One Ilfracombe, through One Northern Devon. We already have really strong partnerships with our partners that mean we get quite a lot of stuff done already. So we're feeling pretty positive about this, that we're ahead of the curve compared to most of Devon actually, but certainly elsewhere. So I won't dwell on this, but it just shows you the evolution. I understand you've had the slides beforehand, but it just shows what we're dealing with now at the top and then what we're likely to deal with in future. But really clearly it says we are going to be commissioning local services for local people in a way that we haven't been before. So when Devon, so think again about the 4th priority, which is the social and economic benefits to the population. When Devon health boards looked at the problems that Devon is facing, you'll see there's quite a few in there about health, but you'll see an awful lot about economic resilience, about climate change, about housing, about rural isolation, about pressures on services, about mental health, about employment training. So this is what I mean about the NHS coming out to our partners and saying, we know we need to deal with these problems together. We can't deal with them all on our own. We need help, and we're recognising them as an issue that our county faces. So NHS Devon, which is the big ICS Devon, came up with a strategy. These are the 9 or 10 priorities, and then there's some enablers. And again, if I've colour-coded the ones that I think overlap with what councils are involved with, and you can just see visually the overlap that we've all got. So in the NHS strategy is something about employment, about economy, about housing, about climate. We also need to deliver this plan. We need the enablers of a green plan. We need a workforce plan in Devon, which means that people come and work here and thrive here. We have, I'll our duties as an anchor institution to support the local economy. We need digital and data infrastructure to help us deliver new models of care that mean we improve access. We need research and innovation and the estate that Zara will come and talk about in the second part. So hopefully that gives you a sense of where we overlap. If that didn't convince you, I've also been through your plan and worked out where I think we overlap here too. And look, we need a vibrant economy to support local health services. We need to attract the very best clinicians, the very best technicians to our local areas to provide services to our population. We need a world-class environment. We need to support the North Devon biosphere. It is one of the jewels in our crown. And we also then need to work together on green commuter routes, on greening our service delivery and all the rest of it. And we need a housing market. We need our staff to be able to get access to houses, and we need our patients to be living in really high quality housing that doesn't impact and worsen their health. So these are things that we really need to work on together. We also need the state to only be in people's lives when it needs to be, and that means resilient communities that support each other and develop resilience together. So I could go on, but I'm hoping you're getting the message that we've come and looked at your plan. We've looked at our plan. There's enormous areas where we think we can work together. And then Royal Devon, just as a provider, came up with its own strategic objectives. The first one there is about collaboration and partnership. And what that recognises is that the NHS isn't an island. It can't do stuff on its own. It's big, but it also needs the support of its partners. And we appreciate that partners need our support too. So that's the first one there. And I just thought I would just put a selection in pink of the things that we're working on that sort of prove what we're doing in partnership with others. So fuel poverty, which is about people's access to energy and housing insulation, is being done in partnership with the GP services and a voluntary sector. We're looking at our high intensity users. So these are people who come into our ED, we call it flow, because it's high intensity users, sounds a bit managerial, but the flow. So we look at people who come into our ED, and we work with the police and the mental health services and housing to think about how do we better help these people and meet their needs. So hopefully that helps explain where I think our priorities overlap. And this summary really is just to lay that all out. We think we need to work together. We would really welcome the opportunity to work with the council on some joint things together. And this is the reason why. So if I start with health, only 20% of someone's health is actually impacted by the health service. The rest of it is about where they're born, where they live, how they live. Housing, it's stark. We have a segment of our population and workforce that can't afford or find a house. We need to be able to supply houses for our workforce. So if anything, that would be the one thing that I would say, please, can we work with you on? Infrastructure, all of the new models of care that are coming are all about virtual appointments, which are great for a rural area like North Devon, but we also need to make sure people can still access. So we need roads, we need the transport, we need public transport, we need green transport, but we also need digital access. Unemployment, of course, the Royal Devon employs about 15,000 people. We're nearly £1 billion organisation. There's hundreds of professions that create real expertise. They're really valued to the community of North Devon and East Devon. But our wage bill is big because we provide a service. And so I think, we really want to explore with you opportunities where we can work together to sustain these local services that everyone needs. We're challenged. I know councils are challenged too, so it makes sense for us to come to you and ask, if we can work together. And environment, everyone has got net zero challenges. So have we. We're a big energy consumer, and we would need help with that. And then the economy. Just the last point. We know that the NHS capital is spent on things that make our services more productive in terms of capital investment, digital and automation. And we'd really like you to get ahead and brief you on those things. Oh, I can breathe now because it's Zara's turn. But what we thought we would do is we'd canter through, and hopefully you can think about questions you've got along the way. But because I don't want to stop the flow by going straight into the Our Future Hospital, because that's the biggest bit of capital investment that we've got coming in. So if I move on, Zara, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Catherine. It was the button in the middle on the bottom, was it? Sorry.
It's this one.
Thank you. Oh, that one, right, okay. Lovely, thank you. And thank you very much again, as I say, for having us here today. And I probably should start by saying what this is and what it isn't, because I think we're already 3 years into a piece of work around redeveloping our local hospital, which most of you will have been aware of. It's not a few scanners in a room, it's not a few nice consulting rooms, it's not a bit of a fluffy reception. We've been doing some smaller schemes over the last 5 to 10 years, which those of you who use the hospital will have seen in the sort of £1 to £5 million bracket. This is huge. When you think about economic impact, this is probably a generational investment in our local community, in our local area, as well as in our local healthcare. So in that context, I think it's worth just revisiting how we set out this project when we set it out. And we did that by engaging with all the key local stakeholders to try and prioritise the difference this could make to us. And we obviously started with the care of our population. Our population is ageing and changing, and we need to be able to respond to that and to be able to deliver the right healthcare for them in the future. So that has to be the first building block. But the enablers for that are digital. They are the workforce that we can recruit. They are the estate we're going to build. And out of that, we hope to be able to deliver the right care in the right place. And since we embarked on this work, obviously we've gone to the merger, bringing North and East services together, and that in itself gives us opportunities. So let's just talk a bit about how we built this up. This is way too small, so I'm hoping you did all get the slides in advance. I'm really happy if anyone wants to ask any questions afterwards or just contact us, please do. The first pass has to be to set out our clinical strategy, how we're going to develop the services that we're going to provide. And we've done that by considering our services in 4 main areas. Urgent and local emergency care. It probably always needs to be face-to-face. It's very rarely going to be virtual in the first instance. Our commitment here in North Devon is actually to maintain that urgent and emergency care. It's the reason our hospital exists. It's the reason our hospital will continue to exist. And it's very front and central to all of our strategy in terms of how we work. However, we do also provide planned and elective care, and that's important too, because not everybody has access to transport to get to more distant locations. But importantly, if we want to recruit workforce, they also have to be able to work in their specialisms as well as in general urgent care. So these two things are inherently linked. The commitment we made when we went through the merger is that we would maintain the level of services for our population and the type of services we currently provide. And in some cases, we may even do more, which obviously is something that we will look forward to with the new estate. Community and primary care is about care closer to home. That is oftentimes care in people's homes. It's not really in a community per se, but we do have community hospital, community facilities across the area, which are very important to us because they house rehabilitation services, and we're working closely with primary care partners now to work out better ways to use estate that's not fully utilised. So we really do create community facilities. And then finally, specialists, tertiary care and research. Catherine mentioned it's important we create a world-class environment. That's how we recruit really good people. That's how we grow the workforce of the future. So all of those are very important building blocks. I mentioned digital, and I think it's worth saying the new hospital programme has started in North Devon. But sometimes people forget we drew down the first £10 million of funding to support putting in our electronic patient record. And in putting that in, we've done 2 things. We've enabled our workforce to collaboratively support people of the area. So now they can be seen in any one of our sites and locations through a shared system. Cases can be worked on collaboratively between our workforce across our sites. It's given us a different way of working. And that can be as simple as in urgent care, virtual expertise, supporting on-the-ground support, or it can be about somebody with a very specialist condition, maybe haematology or oncology condition, being able to be supported remotely as well as on-site. So that's really important. And the next stage has been rolling out a patient portal. Not everyone has access to IT, but for those that do or their carers do, being able to not just access information, but also upload information, seek advice when they need it from the clinic or service they're under, is a really important development of that service. And alongside that, we have one of the largest EPR-based virtual wards in Europe. And when Mr. Sunak visited us recently, that was one of his main areas of interest, because we have really pushed ahead with allowing people to be able to go home on the day with wearable monitoring so they can be supported, but go home to their own bed. Some of you may have seen an article in the news in the last week about a lady in Plymouth who was part of one of the virtual ward pilots. Again, it's about allowing people the choice of being able to be cared for in their own home as well as in a hospital setting. And finally, I have to mention our robots. We're very proud of the fact we've installed our first robotic surgery in North Devon in one of our very small theatres, but it's the beginnings of the future, we hope. So we are getting on with growing, but the real estate challenge is one which everybody in this room will be familiar with. Anyone who's used our hospital will know it's not pretty. It is old. It is, in some cases, more than 50 years old, some parts of our buildings, and we are serving one of the most remote populations in mainland England. We are, in fact, described as the most remote district general hospital. And because of that, it means that we cannot afford to not provide the services needed, because if our service is interrupted, the consequences are far more reaching than some of our neighbouring hospitals. So that's the really important point that makes our project different to maybe the other 39 are currently in the scheme for new hospital investment over the next 10 years. We do have some critical high-risk estate. Our team, my team, work really hard to keep our hospital safe and operational, and they do an amazing job to keep our estate running and to keep it clean, serviceable, and able to be worked in. But as I say, there's an awful lot more we could do once we invest. And our Fit for Future workplace, we've talked a bit about staffing and a great place to work. We will recruit people into Northern Devon to support the growth of future healthcare services if we put the right facilities in. So that's probably where we start. I wanted to mention the new hospital programme. It's had quite a bit of coverage in the media recently, and I think it's important that as elected representatives, you have an understanding of where we sit in this programme, because we are part of the national programme. This is not just a direct local investment, and that's important for two reasons. Firstly, because of the benefits. If they get this right, then we will have enough standardised design that will reduce the costs of everybody keep redesigning the same thing, and everyone knows that makes sense. However, what we'll also get is economies of scale and potential benefits in terms of cost, and that helps every taxpayer because we can get more for our money. So the new hospital programme objectives are really clear, and we, as part of that programme, will work closely with them over this coming 12 months as they start to drop the detailed designs to understand how we can utilise that to keep the cost of our rebuild down. So it's very much a partnership in terms of the new hospital programme, but in terms of our local project, it still remains a local project. So it's important to see the context of that. One of the consequences of the recent work being done around the RAC hospitals, which again has been quite widely publicised, is they've expanded the programme and expanded the timeline. And in doing that, what they've actually done is reviewed the different types of projects in the scheme. So our scheme was reviewed, and it was felt that the what they call minimum viable product, what we would call the best that we could do, is actually more than we had originally thought. And that's a real positive for the area. They've recognised that in order to deliver fit for future healthcare services, just replacing the worst of our estate is not enough. They need to do more. They need to put in more future-facing facilities and care, including things like single bedrooms, increasing the percentage that we can offer so that we can offer privacy and dignity as well as good infection control. There's a lot of elements of the new hospital programme emerging that are going to benefit us. And for that reason, we have revamped our preferred way forward to say we want to take advantage of the opportunity to totally redevelop our site, which is a much bigger project than we started with. But we're starting small. Enabling works is about starting to rejig our site, clear some of the space we're going to need, but also actually tackle pretty much the worst piece of estate we have. And the worst piece of estate we have is going to look beautiful shortly, thank you to Nicola, because we now have the commitment to complete the business case over the next 4 months. We're talking to contractors at the moment, about the process to put in designs, and we have the commitment from the new hospital programme that they've put in budget next year, the funding to rebuild our staff residences, which is our short-term on-site accommodation. But that houses international nurses coming over, it houses medical students. We have over 100 medical students a year now operating in the hospital, which all of whom need temporary housing, short-term housing, and also visiting clinicians on whom we're very dependent. So it's an absolutely key element of what we do. And the timescales for that are business case submitted by the end of March, demolition of some of our existing already partly decommissioned accommodation next summer, and then spades in the ground. Lord Markham says he's coming back to do it himself. So in all of that, it would be easy to get lost in the healthcare aspect of this and what this development does for our local population. I would never want to diminish that, but this is so much more. This is a multi-million-pound investment in our local economy. So it doesn't just affect us in terms of what it delivers as an outcome. It affects us as an ongoing project. It will employ local people. It will use local tradespeople. I myself oversee a department which currently employs 985 people, and not one of them is clinical. People sometimes forget the NHS needs to use a lot of different skills to operate and to develop. And this project, because of the specialist nature of the build, although there will be centralist expertise we'll have to bring in, will offer an amazing opportunity over the next 10 years in terms of what it can do. And at the end of that, it will also offer employment opportunities and growth for our local economy. So our role is to try and stay connected to all of our stakeholders. We ran a workshop last year. Members of your staff team were there, other stakeholders locally who are really interested in the difference this could make in terms of changing the face of our local economy. And that is the bit, I suppose, coming back to where Catherine started, that we're interested in, because the ideas and thoughts that came out of that workshop around the enablers were clearly around the fact we've mentioned housing, so we can deal with short-term on-site staff accommodation, but a joint strategy that doesn't just look at affordable housing to help people who need that social support, but also dedicated housing ring-fenced for key workers so that we can give them the healthcare they need, is a challenge we haven't yet cracked, but it needs to be front and centre to any local planning. And similarly with infrastructure, and Catherine mentioned some of the green stuff, I think personally we have a great relationship with our local partners, and through the structures that have been described, we can have all the right conversations. What we need to do nationally is sell a shared vision, because we're competing on a timescale, a timeline, and a national investment plan for our share of the cake as soon as we can get it. And I think we will get there faster if we can demonstrate just how aligned our local system is and just how forward thinking and prepared we are to embrace the opportunity this brings. So in terms of what we're going to say for today, I think that is pretty much it. So over to you guys in terms of we can answer any questions, hear from you what you think.
Thanks, for sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my questions are probably going to relate to our first speaker, Catherine and Helen. I'll start off light and then get down to the nitty-gritty. Last year, while I was in Yorkshire, nothing from the leader of the House. I had the opportunity to talk to a former gynaecologist about an app that they were making for doctors' consultations. And I asked a question which it didn't appear that he had an answer for. So how, once we digitise GP surgeries, are we going to take into account the statistically significant placebo effect of people visiting their doctor? And the second question, you obviously care a great deal about our area, our community, our people, the visitors, the people, and you showed how you are working with the council or with similar aims as the council. And as nobody from the NHS managed to find themselves able to attend the NDC Policy Committee, could you please elucidate us on the barren situation of dentistry in the area, which by
Councillor,
my eyes
that's not
have-
relevant. I'm sorry.
it is for
I
strategic
don't-
development of the NHS.
My
So I was
organisation
going to ask for the update.
No, it's not to do with dentistry.
Dentistry is not part of the NHS.
It is, but it's not delivered by us.
It's not delivered.
Okay. Well, I feel that service has fallen below minimal viable service.
I'm really happy to get in touch with the person that answers on dentistry.
Thank you. Councillor Katrinos.
Is there an answer from the
Oh,
question?
yes,
So
sorry.
I haven't, I don't know, I'm not a, this is beyond my area of expertise about the research into placebo effects on going to a GP. I'd suggest you have to work quite hard to get into the GP practice, so that, you know, when you're there, you know, it strikes me that there's a reason why you're calling a GP. But I don't know anything about the placebo. I certainly, the GP, we're really lucky in North Devon actually with our GP colleagues. They're a really stable bunch, and there's, you know, there's other areas of the country that are not as well served by their GP practices.
Thank you. Just before that, I'd just like to tell everyone that that you haven't had the slides yet,
Oh, sorry.
but no, it's okay. But Bev will actually circulate them to you all. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling us.
Thanks. Yeah. I was just going to make the point that we hadn't seen the slides yet, so it's quite difficult to follow some of the detail in the tiny writing. But one thing I think I picked up, and you're going to correct me if I'm incorrect, is it talked about the risk of the estate at the start of the project being in the order of 35 million, and it possibly growing to over 80 million. Could you elucidate on what that means?
Yes, I
How
can.
significant that is? Because it sounds very dangerous.
It does, and the way in which we quantify risk is in terms of the cost of maintaining. So critical risk is that which will need to be dealt with in a sort of 1 to 5 year period, and the approximate value placed in is the value of either moderating, mitigating, or replacing. The total risk across the whole site for all of the levels of risk, from low to medium to high, so that would include things that could go for 15, 20 years, is 80 million. The piece which is critical, i.e. we would want to be dealing with it in the next, I would say 5 to 10 years at worst, because we're probably better than most at maintaining some of our estate, is the 35 million figure. So when we look at the value to the public purse of replacing our estate, it's against initially offsetting that 35 million of ongoing replacement burden or maintenance burden to keep the existing estate going, as opposed to replacing it with zero maintenance burden because we're replaced with new and it has a whole new lifestyle.
Thank you. Councillor Caroline Newburn.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you both very much. I'm afraid I've really struggled to hear what you said. This room is just, it sucks.
Oh, no. Oh, sorry.
Sucks what you say. So, I look forward to the slides, but what I did pick up was great, really interesting. Okay, so, I'm a county councillor, and I've been talking recently with the head of adult social care, and very much looking about the idea about integrated boards and care and partnerships and so on and so forth. And I suppose I've got two questions. One is actually about housing and about particularly the availability of housing, because one of the things we've been hearing about from Devon County Council's perspective is that it's really difficult to recruit carers. And I'm thinking in terms of, it is better for patients, I would suggest, I don't know, but I would guess that it's better for people to be not in hospital, but at home. So I wondered if you could comment on that. And the other bit is about prevention, to actually stop people getting to the point where they need to stay in hospital. Thank you.
Yeah, so obviously social care is assessed, there's eligibility criteria and there is needs assessment. So when you qualify for social care, it's really important that you get support. You've been assessed as being able to be supported, but in your own home. So that covers what social care helps people do. And you're absolutely right. Of course, it's better to help people to be supported to live in their own homes for as long as possible, for as long as they want. I've now forgotten your second question. Housing. Yeah, and I think, so social care, I was looking at an analysis done by social care the other day that said the majority of people moving into Devon are those that retire. We need to think about their housing needs as well.
So I was actually thinking about the staff.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. Of course, because actually you need people who live locally to care for people locally. So you need a mixed economy of housing in your local areas. I'm thinking of Ilfracombe, Torrington, Barnstable. You need a wide variety of housing within these sectors. You can't put people just in one place and expect them to travel all the way across Devon, because they can't. So
I'm not sure I actually answered my question correctly.
Sorry, could you stand up?
Are there issues with actually availability of housing?
Huge.
As we're hearing?
Huge.
That's your home health.
yeah, sorry, I thought you were talking about the type of housing.
No, I'm sorry.
Councillor Warden.
No. Thank you, Madam Chair. No, not too much to drink. Councillor Lieber actually asked partly what I was going to ask. It's really about recruitment and barriers and so on. I was interested to hear that you have 100 medical students. I'd like to know a lot more about that and about the recruitment. Who would I basically contact to find out more details?
Me, I can help signpost you. I don't know the details now, but
Okay.
but I can go and find out for you.
Okay, I'll get back to you on that particular one. But I look forward very much to the presentation. I thought it was very encouraging, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Councillor February.
One of the questions on a lot of people's minds in North Devon, and especially since the amalgamation with Exeter, is retention of services. Now I know Innocent Road is Exeter based, primary care is now Exeter based. So if you have a heart attack, you might come into the North Devon district, but you're flown to Exeter or Plymouth with major units. We want to retain services in North Devon. We want to retain a maternity unit, an ICU, an A&E. Will the future hospital scheme retain these services?
So I'll start and you pick up the bits I miss. It has always been the case that there is a limit to the amount of care that North Devon can provide due to its size, but also, you would want your population to be able to easily access and be airlifted to a tertiary centre which provides specialist care for your needs. That has always been the case in North Devon. We have always relied on the support of our partners in Great Ormond Street, in Bristol, French, I think, it's probably changed its name, I think, but for children, and Derriford for neurology, and Exeter for stroke and cardiology. So we have always worked in clinical networks with neighbouring hospitals to serve our population. And that's actually a testament to the clinicians we've got in our trust, that local people can come to our front door and then get the best care that we can provide as the NHS family. But you're absolutely right. You need to retain staff and you need to retain services. The two go hand in hand. And as Zara said, the red line or the line in the sand is you start with your front door, your A&E service, your ICU, your maternity service. All of that ecosystem is what we're trying to build for the future population need. I didn't need you there.
Didn't need me, I didn't say it all, she said it all.
Councillor Denton.
Thanks, Jen. Hi. Earlier on you said about the electronic side of it and the internet and things like that. I'd just like to say that I used the My Chart, and I would say to everybody else to get the app, because it's been amazing for me for the last year personally, because I can actually email directly with the surgeons, with neurology, with all the other departments, and they all talk to each other within that space as well.
Yeah.
And that side of the electronic side of it and the internet side of things will help the NHS. Just from my experience, from taking away their time, we're giving them more time rather than being in the hospital, or do it from home, etc. So your home care plan does work in that respect. I'd just like to say that it is working. That My Chart, everybody should get it.
Yes, I'll be interviewing you later. No, that's great to hear. It's good. It's really good. Thank you.
Councillor Tops.
Thanks, Chair. It's largely been covered by Mel, Councillor Lovren. It's related to one of the slides mentioned the centralising specialist services in either Eastern or Northern. So is Eastern Oakhampton? Is that right?
No. So Eastern for us is Wanford, Heavy and the surrounding communities, say the north. But what that particularly refers to, and our clinicians felt really strongly about this, and we listened to them when we were looking at how we design the clinical strategy and how we describe these things. North Devon has some specialisms. It is not all. If you have a complicated abdominal wall tear anywhere in the country, you need to come to North Devon because we have the best surgeon in the country. Bizarrely, he built a house in Cloyd Bay. But interestingly for us, he's also built a team around him of incredible wannabe trainee surgeons and others who want to learn from him. And in developing that service and building it, what everyone locally has recognised across the Devon system is that we have a service that is actually a leading service, and you wouldn't want to move that or dilute it. So that's why we say that as a trust, our strategy is to make sure we recognise where we've already got pockets of excellence and we build on those specialist services. Just because it's specialist does not mean to say it has to go to one hospital or the other. It's where
I suppose we kind of bring me on to the question of, are there services then that it's looking at would be located solely at one of those sites?
Eventually, potentially,
and if so, are there services that are looking at potentially being mainly provided in Eastern? And then what we want to get from that, if so, are there any actions that this authority could take that would swing the balance and maybe keep some of those services here?
I think it is an ecosystem. A hospital is an ecosystem, and with technology, the boundaries of what you can do locally and virtually potentially change all the time. It's quite difficult to give you a exact answer, but I think the basis of my answer is we know the population health need of North Devon. There is an ageing population. There is a need for really safe child maternity services and all the surgery in between. And we need to make sure those core services are there. And as Zara says, the pockets of excellence and innovation that grow may mean more services can stay because we find different ways of delivering them. But I think the fundamentals of a public transport infrastructure, digital infrastructure, housing, clean air, all the rest of it are the building blocks to us achieving that. And I think that's where we think the greatest, strength of us working with our local councils and our partners can be found, because we need your help in the building blocks bit to achieve what we need to do.
Thanks, Mabel.
Thank you. Sure, our doctors wouldn't like to be called wannabe surgeons, but apart from that, I'm just coming back to your point. You mentioned Ilfracombe and Torrington as two places that are very hard to reach North Devon from in terms of housing. In your response to Councillor Lever, and was the need for housing in those areas and the spot population there. Of course, they also have two excellent community hospitals, as South Bolton also had extra ward, and Bideford had ward space as well at one point. Closing down those, I'm sure, was a sensible strategic option, but it does leave the people who live in those communities quite isolated when they might be elderly and need to visit North Devon Hospital for small amounts of care. To visit, if they're visiting relatives who are having they've come to the end of their care needs, or possibly even the end of their life, and they're having to travel all the way into North Devon Hospital, a long way from Torrington, a long way from Bideford even, and certainly a long way from Ilfracombe. It's a real shame to see that those community hospitals have all gone. They don't provide ward care to people who just need a little bit of extra care. The virtual wards are a great idea, and I do support that, but actually sometimes people need a little bit of hospital care, and simply closing them was a real shame. And I know there's no move to reopen them, but I just wanted to voice that many people miss those hospitals.
Yeah, so they are still open, just for the avoidance of any doubt. But you're absolutely right, Councillor, that the beds are closed in all but South Moulton. And what's happened in all of them is that there is now a thriving day services element to them. So you'll have heard about South Moulton and the eye unit going in there. That's amazing. But in terms of when you talk about a little bit of care, the problem is that was very difficult to achieve. It was very difficult to staff 5 community hospitals when we had a nursing shortage. So we had to make the decision about trying to find different ways of delivering the same care but in people's homes. And we also partner with care homes. We buy beds in care homes. They're just not in our community hospitals. So the bed bit of the provision is still there. And actually what the care home arrangement allows us to do is do that little bit of care without taking someone permanently out of their home for that respite care. So I think we've found a way around it that still meets people's needs and gives them the option of a bed if they're clinically assessed to need it. But you're absolutely right. We got to a point where we couldn't safely sustain 4 of the community hospitals. but they are still providing services for day patients.
Councillor Knight.
Thanks very much for your presentation. Not wishing to allude to this what we call the Americanization, the privatization by stealth of the NHS, because we all feel that. You mentioned the digitalizing of your systems, and I know I speak on behalf of the nation when I ask, is it the digitalization of patient records, is it secure? And secondary, how is it going with the computers at the
I think that's a bit loaded, but yeah, your data is secure. We share it between clinicians on an appropriate basis, as if they were in the room with you talking about you. So it doesn't leave our virtual building. So hopefully that gives you the reassurance. In terms of how the computer's going, fine, I think. Yeah. I haven't heard. I mean, I think we're blessed with a really good IT digital team. They support our clinical teams amazingly. So,
Councillor Jones.
Can you ask Sarah a question?
I'll try not to be loaded. But it might be.
Just a couple of simple questions. So for clarity, there is a new hospital coming. When we say new, what percentage do we mean new? We understand that you can't just knock it all down and build an entirely new one. So assuming it is on the same site, what percentage of the new building will be new? And when are we going to get it? What year are we actually going to have it?
I love it when somebody asks me 2 questions. However, let me do my best to tell you what we do know. So, in terms of the percentage, we don't have an exact percentage yet because we're working through the preferred way forward designs. But our ambition and what we will be looking to submit is a rebuild of what we would call all our acute technical care facilities. So, the areas that essentially are patient-facing, inpatient flow, emergency departments, theatres, intensive care. So, the pieces that we consider integral to an acute hospital. What we won't do, and this is for us actually quite a key point, we've said that we will still maintain the main infrastructure old building, which is sound but not suitable for the technical care it provides with theatres, etc. anymore. And we will either repurpose, reuse spaces for staff rest areas, wellbeing, admin space, outpatient clinics on the ground floor, etc. So what it will be is we will actually have a much bigger hospital than we had before. So at the moment, it looks like we'll probably end up with something that will be 30 to 40% larger in terms of floor area than what we currently have. So that's why I say it's difficult to put a percentage on, because we will have replaced most of the core acute facilities that are currently provided in that main building or in the ancillary buildings. The when, that's an even trickier question. So the when originally was that all the hospitals will be built by 2030. Most people be aware that Secretary of State in his May announcement suggested that because of the RAC hospitals being added to the national programme, some of those hospitals would slip over into the next 5-year funding window. And for us as a hospital, we have turned around and said, if that is the case for us, we would like to proceed with a phased build where we do the most critical estate, that critical risk that I mentioned earlier, the 35 million, we get that done in this first phase, slipping in between some of those larger projects and potentially completing some of the rest of the build in the next funding round, if that's the way we have to do it. So we're very determined to get on with it, but I can't give you an end date yet because that end date isn't the same. Our aim for the start date is next year.
For the refurb, as opposed to a new hospital?
Well, it's a redevelopment actually, because we'll be building so much new buildings. So it's a redevelopment of our site, because we're not going to knock down all the old buildings. We will knock down a large percentage, but not all of it. If we could reuse it, we should, because from a net zero carbon, embodied carbon perspective, knocking down sound buildings and then building new office buildings would be a waste of time and money.
Councillor York.
Thank you. My question is about mental health, which you mentioned earlier. I'm sure you're aware that Devon County Council seems to be hell bent on closing the Link Centre in Barnstaple.
And I wondered what influence, if any, do you have on the process, and whether at the very least you've responded to the consultation, because inevitably people don't get mental health support, they will end up reaching crisis point, which will impact your A&E department and the areas of the hospital.
Yes.
So,
yes, you're right. So we get briefed as a partner regularly, and we're really interested in, as you say, in the impact assessment of how they've defined the impact on people of those decisions. Now we have influence, but we don't have a decision-making ability, and that this is for the council to do. And I think we're watching it carefully, because as a member of the community, you're absolutely right. Mental health is really important to us.
so have you responded to the consultation?
I do believe we have. Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, working in the NHS, I see the dedication of our staff day in, day out. And that's not just a frontline service that come and fix you, if you like, but all the other backroom ones where the IT, we're talking about digital, we're talking about the estate infrastructure, we're talking about the applying for supplies and everything like that. So I think it's real vital. What I will say is that you will need to work in partnership with our council, and that's exactly such as things like health inequalities. So our team, headed by Jeremy Mann, our council, has a lot to do on health and inequalities. I can say to you that we will work with you. I will also say about all this hospital redesign or new parts, you will need planning permission for that. And this council is the planning authority. And I can say that we will work with you as well to sort of get these things out in the open and get them done. And also housing projects for key workers. We all know, and it's not just for the NHS, but it's also for social care workers, which are integrated within the NHS, because it'll stop bed blocking if we've got people here to look after people once they're out of hospital. But also the all areas where we have got property, where we've got land that we can build on, and we can allocate to key worker housing. We will work with you as well as other sectors in the community. But the NHS is vital. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for coming along tonight. And you've provided us with a good insight. And now we've got two named people. I'm sure councillors will know where to fire off any questions, because your names will be the first slide that we all get, which we haven't received, by the way. We haven't received yet, but Bev's going to send them all out, we've been told tonight. But thank you. But that's the way that we can work, and we need to work in partnership as a council with the biggest employer in Northern Devon. The NHS is the biggest employer we've got throughout the whole of Northern Devon. And we as a council, and I know Torridge, he did a presentation to Torridge, and they've said the same, we will work with you as a council.
Councillor Kent's got a question.
Kent?
No, it's not.
It's not a question, it's following up on what the leader just talked about, because the objective of this presentation was to show how the priorities of the NHS pretty much match our priorities. Yeah. And we've got to work together collaboratively. I know that sounds a little bit, not an apple pie, whatever the expression is, but the leader has outlined some of the areas where we are working already collaboratively with the NHS. But one of the big areas and one of the big opportunities we're going to come on to talk about later, which is the local plan that's coming up, the refresh of the local plan, and it's making sure that the needs of the NHS, the needs of the new hospital are met as part of that local plan in terms of housing, skills, all the other objectives as well. So that's a really good opportunity in the longer term. But short term, exactly as the leader said, we will continue to work with the NHS as a partner. We fully understand the massive impact that the hospital has on our economy and on our social fabric as an area. So we will continue to support it in the way that we have been doing, but also strengthening the ties as well that developing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Joe, you're not going to the rest of us?
Sorry. Who else had their hands up?
Yeah, all.
Sorry, I didn't see you. I'm sorry. I do apologise.
Don't worry.
Who wants to go?
No, I think that, to be fair, it's definitely important. Well, I mean, I think to be fair, the question's been asked, but it's just one.
Very briefly, Chair. It's just that Well, I think we're all aware of how closely the NHS has been working with local council authorities. I mean, there's a huge amount of work going on behind the scenes, I know. You'll have to probably educate me slightly, which doesn't take a lot to do, but there's staffing levels with this, some sort of scandal at Staffordshire Trust or some such thing. So every service has to have a minimum turnover of patients, a minimum turnover of staff, and the like. So how confident are you that you can staff services that you've got, and how confident are you that you can shove enough punters in the front door to maintain the surgeon's expertise, as it were?
We don't have an issue with patient numbers. We've got enough of them. I'd say we monitor staffing, we call it staffing safety levels, hourly. So we do it in real time, and what we do is we move staff around to cover all our critical areas are fully covered. And if I'm on call quite a lot, I observe that happening, that we move staff from, and it's amazing the community and the cooperation that goes on, because actually it's really difficult for staff to go and spread, go and work in different areas and different teams across the trust, but that's so.
But you're content it's working, that's the main thing.
No, well, we rely on a pipeline of workforce, so you will know that we're in partnership with Petroc to train our own nurses. We don't have a university up here, but Petroc provide the blind faculty for us to. And the first nurses graduated, I think, a week ago, which is amazing. So 3 years ago, we set that plan in place. So these are degree educated nurses now working for us who may have started as teenagers. So that's amazing. The power of that is amazing, and the medical school that Warden mentioned. We'll never have enough. But we do our best to make sure we've got a good supply. Thank you.
No, I'll go on then, really. Because mental health did come up, and it worries me, because a lot of talk about partnership work and collaboration, everything else, brilliant. Absolutely. But then the reality, mental health, the awful situations we see, and then you read the news that the police are going to walk away, so you think, well, certainly the fire service are going to pick it up. How are we working together to actually sort of get the right people at the scene, and then relieve the police and fire or whatever it is, so then some sort of proper health professional is taking it on. It does worry me a bit.
Yeah, I think you're referring to right place, right person. I think.
I learned that one, but yeah.
I think that's what the police guidance, the Home Office guidance is called. And you're absolutely right, it needs a change in practice. But one of the things that we have to be really careful of is we don't chew up ambulance time, police time in our A&E, and that we get the right care to the people who are experiencing mental health issues very quickly. We're lucky in North Devon that we're co-located with Devon Partnership Trust, and actually, funnily enough, I've just arranged a meeting with them, the police and NHS, for the next 2 weeks. I think it's in 2 weeks' time, to talk about exactly that, because we know we need to work in partnership. We know we need to make sure the right care gets to people experiencing a mental health issue, and how do we do it? And I suppose the beauty of the fact that we work so closely together in North Devon is it's not an easy conversation, but it's a very easy conversation to arrange, because we're ready to help each other, and we understand that it's an ecosystem where we've got to help each other. So it doesn't answer your question. I don't know the outcome, but I'm sure Toby or the mental health, Toby Davies or the mental health would be delighted to come and tell you how they plan on working it. Thank you.
I'd like to see you all in the same room.
Oh, well, you're welcome to come. I can invite you.
Have I missed any other hands?
Thank you both very much.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant here. Thank you. Thank
You've got
I think it's up to you.
It's like watching the lights. Okay, members, thank you. Right, item 11. Report of the leader of the councillor room.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, you've got the report in front of you. I'm sure you can all read. and I'm really conscious of time. But the main thing is that the big issue facing our sector and the LGA are lobbying guard on this is the funding for our councils. You know, we are struggling. Devon County Council is struggling. We are struggling as a council up and down the country, and it doesn't bode well when you are trying to run services for your residents when there's no long-term funding in place. It's sort of year on year. Yeah. So I think we get to know in January, is it?
December.
December. So December, and we've got to set our budgets. Wouldn't it be nice if you said over the next 3 years, this is how much you're going to get, rather than a year-on-year situation, so we can plan our services. So I was really looking forward to that statement today, which never materialised. The other thing is, obviously, tonight as we speak, we've got roughly about 60 people in temporary accommodation. You know, that's either provided by us or we're having to put people into B&Bs and other holiday accommodation, which is no use for holiday accommodation. But through on this council, when you took decisions in the past where we've actually bought our own properties, has actually mitigated that cost. However, it is still a cost. And with the cost of living crisis at the moment, we're forecasting, you know, we're looking at our numbers, and you know, it's coming up to Christmas. People, seasonal workers are not working, maybe not be able to get any jobs. And looking for alternative jobs to buy them over the winter period. It could get worse for temporary accommodation, people getting into debt with the interest rates and mortgage. So we're anticipating a slight increase. We hope it never materialises, but we've got to be prudent. And that's the little bit I put in my report about temporary accommodation. It is a big issue, and it will continue to be an issue for us. Some of the councils that we were on a call when we wrote a joint letter, you know, some with a precept of 14 to 15 million pounds, a quarter of their budget is spent on temporary accommodation, which actually puts us in a better light as a council in some respects. However, it is a big major problem around the country at the moment, and it's not being addressed. So I would have liked to see something, although they have given a local allowance increase in the budget today, which might alleviate some of that for private renting. However, it's very difficult all round. And the other thing is since we all met, I'd like to congratulate everyone for their input during the remembrance services around the district, and they were well attended. I think I've never seen so many attending one in Barnsley as what's just happened this time, and I've been going to them for the last 20 something years, and the school service was very well attended as well. But yes, that's my report. And the only other thing is, since that I've written that report, is you'll all learn about the levelling up funding. Disappointed that we didn't get any. The 20 million went to Torbay and 19.7 million went to Plymouth. So I'm really disappointed that we, and I always think, Councillor Crabb, I always think about the Ilfracombe bit. You know, the life expectancy in Ilfracombe needs some major investment, and we were hoping, after writing a letter from myself and John Hart, to get more funding in the letter from the Levelling Up Minister, and we were hoping that might have been an announcement today to get more money for Ilfracombe, but it never materialised. So I think sometimes the priorities, what's being done at the moment is more about electioneering rather than actual needs of our residents, and Ilfracombe is the finest example in that. And but we're still doing a lot of work with other agencies trying to get investment into Ilfracombe to bring it up. And I know Councillor Crabb is very well aware of that, because he has been in some meetings with the county and stuff. So that's my report.
Thank you.
Chairman, I don't like repeating what I said at the last full council, but what are we going to do about the problems at Ilfracombe? I listened to the announcement and, you know, these monies going to Torbay and Plymouth. And then I listened to our MP on Radio Devon talking about, you know, the districts really weren't, you know, quite up to dealing with these sorts of things. Well, that's the inference that I got, which I felt rather, well, a bit cheesed off about when the amount of work that's gone into it. And then at the end, it basically was saying it's down to us and the county council between us to find the resources to intervene in Ilfracombe. Now, the sort of money that is needed to tackle some of the housing and social issues and health issues at Ilfracombe, you know, is beyond our resource. Yeah. You know, let's be honest about it. So I don't know where we go from here. So she made it clear that we didn't get through the last hoop, levelling up, and therefore it ain't going to happen. And so, I mean, that's what I don't know if anybody else, that's what the message I've got. So I was going to ask that I think we need to convene a special meeting in the you know, relatively short period now with our health colleagues and with the county to actually make sure that we've got some sort of programme that can not just ask for levelling up funds, but find some other pots of money, because we can't just leave it here. And I mean, if the district councils, the 8 district councils in Devon can't get over the hurdle, I know we were down in the bottom tier in the first place, but I think we all know that Ilfracombe has got the worst indices in the whole of the county. The county council had set up, don't they? So we've got to find a way of breaking this circle and relaunching something that'll make a difference in Kieran. And it's not about shiny things all the time that you can cut a ribbon on. It's about actually making real social change and life expectancies, health issues, all those other things. So I would ask if Ian could help us, you know, as leader of the council, that we could pull the agencies together and say, let's think about this again. I know there's a lot of work goes on in the futures, and then, you know, one Ilfracombe have worked really, really hard on this. But I think it's about time that we made sure it went right up the agenda. But I say, you know, if we ain't going to get levelling up bid through, we've got to find another way, Chair.
Right. Check. I just say, Councillor Price is absolutely right, but I've asked this very same question of Mr. Miles, not Councillor Miles, Mr. Miles, earlier this week, and I think there might have been a modicum of encouragement, unless none came to the hunt and slapped you down today. I don't know. What's your view?
Yeah, absolutely share your concerns about what we're doing. All of us know that the metrics and the indices down there point to significant issues that public authorities have to get involved in some way. As Councillor Price said, it's really difficult for us to do so in a meaningful way without funding. And the bid that we put in, the bid that we put into government is for a sum of about £24 million, which we would hope would help drive the provision of key worker accommodation, some public realm improvements, some health projects, but for us, more importantly, have an impact on the private sector rental market by getting hold of HIMOs, disused hotels, etc., converting them into residential accommodation and letting them on an ethical basis. That bid has gone into government. I have to say that I never expected it to be to form part of the Levelling Up Fund, because it was always clear that as a lowest priority district council, Ilfracombe was never really going to be recognised as part of that funding stream. It's always been the intention that we would push government for an exceptional fund to recognise Ilfracombe in particular. We've got a round table tomorrow with DLUC officials and other officials, and we should have a better idea after that as to whether it's got legs or not. I have to say that the noises at the moment are probably more on the negative side, but only in respect of the officials saying that, you know, they don't have the mechanism at the moment to be able to fit it within one of the existing funds. So we need to see what comes from tomorrow's meeting, and then we'll have a better idea. We have convened the task force in Ilfracombe, which has got representations from health, town council, district, county council, chaired by Councillor Crabb. And that the intention of that is to pull everybody together to try and do something about Ilfracombe and the issues that we've got there. We can extend that out. We can push that up the agenda most definitely. But everything at the moment is resting on our submission to government. I have to say that if we were looking for a plan B, one of the things we are looking at is whether we could actually intervene in that private sector rental market ourselves, whether there's a business case to be made to actually intervene in that way. And SMT went along to it on Monday to have a look around at some of the potential opportunities. But when you look around at some of the buildings, you realise how much money is going to be needed, and it is quite difficult to see how a business case could be formed. But by all means, let's convene whatever and have a further debate about it. But as soon as we've had some feedback from Thursday's meeting on it,
Thank you. Thanks for the Caroline Weaver.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Rita, for your report, which I think is extremely helpful and informative. Just thinking about Ilfracombe, I think we are all really positive about the need for us, for all of us in the public sector and probably the private sector together, to come together to try to work to make Ilfracombe a place where people have better health outcomes, where prosperity is increased, where productivity is increased, and so on and so forth. And I applaud the efforts that are going into that already. I mean, slightly flippantly, I rather wonder if we have to, suggest to DLUC that we should have a free port. It's a flippant idea. It's not appropriate perhaps. But I suppose really the other question, and maybe this is a flippant question, is would it be helpful if we had an MP who actually stood up for North Devon in Westminster rather than standing up for Westminster in North Devon?
Chair, I can come back to that.
Could you please stand?
Chair, I'd just like to point out to some of the members in the room that the local MP, this should not be a party political thing. I know Councillor Bell's thing is party political, Councillor Room's thing is party political. Now I'm being attacked from my MP. Selene, whatever else you might think of her, Selene has done nothing else but get up her arse and do an awful lot in terms of meetings and that. I'm very often copying into emails. So to accuse her of doing sod all is a little bit rough, to be honest.
Just stop right now, please. Sorry, no, I'm going on to the next thing now. Thank you. Item 12, questions by members. Questions to the leader or the chair of the committee submitted under Part 4 Council Procedure Rules, paragraph 10.4 of the Constitution. I believe a question and answer received has been sent from a member and has been received from a member. It's on one of this evening.
Councillor Bell raised the question. He's entitled to a supplementary question.
Yes. Councillor Bell.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Not a political point, but a question of very vulnerable people in North Devon, the link centres in Ilfracombe and in Barnstaple, as well as the one across the river in Bideford. My daughter wants a pony, and I keep telling her no repeatedly.
Oh, sorry, it has to be a question.
It is a question. Thank you. It will be a question. Devon County Council are asking again and again for the third time to close down the link centres in North Devon. North Devon keeps saying no. The people of North Devon have said no repeatedly. North Devon link centres provide a lifeline to people in North Devon. So people vulnerable. It is coming on to a question. We're coming on to a question.
No, it's
not a need for a statement.
No,
it's a question. Sorry. I'm asking if people in North. I'm asking if councillors as well as support would also back Councillor Room and consider following up this consultation. We've heard from North Devon Healthcare, Royal Devon University Healthcare Trust, whatever they're called now, been there for a while. We've heard from them that healthcare, mental health care is very important.
Yes, sorry, could you ask the question?
The question is, please, would other councillors in the room, as well as members of the press, if they're interested, follow this up with some urgency. We only have until the 6th of December to reply to this. North Devon keeps saying no to closing the link centres. Devon County Council keep re-asking the question like a petulant girl. Thank you.
Through the chair, can we find out about the pony, please? I'd like to know about the
Sorry,
pony.
can I stop? It's getting silly now, stop it. Councillor Room.
Madam Chair, I am sure that every councillor in this room is well aware of the importance of those link centres.
Yes.
And I can assure from correspondence received today and yesterday from Devon County Council officers that those colleagues who are on Devon County are a bit miffed on one of the responses because the meeting went ahead without telling or informing any of us Devon County councillors with those link centres in their areas. I am assured that they are now going to involve us in some sort of information setting. However, I was disappointed at the time that we were not, after being reassured by the council leaders that we could be involved with that. But you can be rest assured that I think all councillors are going to ensure that we will put the views of those users forward, of which I've received many letters, and to state how vital those services are to those people that use them. And we will be monitoring it, but I will be monitoring when it goes on, and I'm sure my colleagues will as well.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Question.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Mate,
Sorry.
under the Constitution, the written question is put, and you have an opportunity to have a supplemental question and the response to be given. So that's it.
Item 13. Local plan review to agree a way forward.
Thank you, Chair. You've got the report, members, for you, starting on page 21 of your agenda, so I will keep the report fairly brief. I'll just take you on a quick journey. So as members will be aware, in 2018 we adopted the existing joint North Devon and Torridge local plan. In 2020 we started looking at what a new local plan would look like, and in late 2020 we resolved to undertake a comprehensive review. We set up a joint planning policy committee as part of that, and work commenced. In mid-2022, so last year, we were tasked as officers with re-examining that position in light of a number of changes. That includes the challenging fiscal position that we find ourselves in, as well as emerging proposals for national reform. That work was carried out as to whether we could have a look again, and in January 23, we took a report to the Joint Planning Policy Committee that considered a number of options. At that time, the Joint Planning Policy Committee resolved to move towards a targeted and focused partial review, but recognising that that approach to updating the local plan is kept under review, having regard to any relevant changes to both the local and national context. That recommendation of the Joint Planning Policy Committee was taken to Torridge District Council in January 23, and that council considered that they needed a little bit more information as to what a scope of a partial review would include. It came back to this full council in February 23, and we agreed to go forward with a partial review. Joint Planning Policy Committee in March of this year considered the scope of the plan, set out paragraph 4.7 of your report for you. That scope then had to go back to Torridge District Council in July of this year for them to consider whether, having regard to that scope, they would move forward with a partial review as per the Joint Planning Policy Committee recommendation. They considered that, but members considered that, and in doing so also considered the fact that since that recommendation, there was a new council in place, that the 5-year housing land supply position had altered, that the national planning policy context was still uncertain, and also that there were a number of opportunities emerging that that they felt only a comprehensive review could properly consider. They are set out at 4.11 for you. It talks about green hydrogen. It talks about marine technologies. It also references the Marine Innovation Centre that's coming forward at Appledore and the inward investment, opportunities that that are emerging as a result of that that development. We've also heard tonight about the new hospital and the opportunities that might come through that. Having regard to those opportunities, Torridge District Council members considered the recommendation and did not agree to go forward with a partial review, but in fact determined that we should move forward with a comprehensive review of the local plan. So at the moment, we have our January recommendation that we go forward with a partial review, and we have Torridge District Council saying that they want to move forward with a comprehensive review, which is why I'm back here this evening. In order to progress with a joint local plan, we would need to agree tonight to move forward with a comprehensive review of the local plan. Our only other option would be to not move forward with a joint local plan, and that is why the recommendation to you is set out at paragraph 2, thank you, that we should proceed with a comprehensive local plan review. Thank you, members.
Jim, humble pie here. As you know, I stood up back nearly 12 months ago saying, you know, we got to the stage, we had PAS in, we looked at all the policies in the local plan, and we were fairly confident most of them are still pretty sound. There are some issues about some of the rural chapter. We always knew that from the inspector's report. The government have been talking about changing the way local plan process. We now, after today, I wonder whether we'll ever see any of that. A lot of the work that we need for a partial review, because we're 5 years into the plan, we're going to review it anyway, we'll update it and check it's right. A lot of the work we've got to do, we need to start now. We have got a 5-year land supply, but only just, so we need to look at other new sites. There's a whole raft of work that needs to be commissioned. So I'm meeting humble pie today and saying, okay, go with the flow, because doing a joint local plan for our one economy, one housing market is more important than us having a fun fight with Torridge. I still disagree with their decision, but it makes sense to carry on. We've got a meeting set before Christmas. The chair has gone from me, well, from North Devon to Torridge. We've got super staff on both sides, and they will work very well together. So let's give them the support and get on with it. We can do the 5-year review quite easy to the existing plan, and we can, you know, on the basis of the things that we can tweak anyway in the short term. Let's get on with the process and agree, humble pie chair, to a comprehensive review.
Thank you.
Difficulty getting up again. Actually, Councillor Price has actually said quite a lot of what I would have said. I'm not happy about the situation. I was fully in favour of a targeted and partial review, but I think the situation now is that it would be wrong for us to go it alone, because it is important that we do work with Torridge. The joint plan has been a success, and I think we've got to actually bite the bullet and agree with them, although I think personally that it's a wrong decision that's been made, but I don't want us to actually decide that we're going to try and do this alone and do our own thing in the future. I think it's important that we work together with Torridge, and they've taken the rug under our feet, I think, on this one, and that we have to go and agree with what they've had to say. There has been, as SJ has pointed out, one or two things that have actually changed since last January, but I'm in that situation where I would have loved it to have just been a targeted and partial review, but under the circumstances, I will support a comprehensive review.
Thanks, Chair. Just a very quick question, really. How long is it going to take? And you know, and you know, what worries me is that we get left vulnerable if we haven't got a plan. You know, where is the status of the current plan, if you like, while we're going through the process? Certainly, my ward has suffered from numerous, what's the word for it? Numerous hostile applications, and what really worries me is if we're left vulnerable without a plan. So how long is it going to take? Because actually, it could be a good opportunity, couldn't it, to actually improve the plan we got and have some really good stuff in there, especially to support local people trying to get. Thank you, Esther.
So we have completed the 5-year review of the current plan, and the plan is found to be sound for decision-making purposes. So that's the first thing to say. In terms of the length of time, so we're currently, the government are consulting at the moment on what that looks like. What they are currently proposing is a 30-month window, 30-month window for plan making. 30 months for plan making, but that is still in consultation. What they're also talking about is moving use orders and bans depending on the age of your plan. So in terms of the that time frame, I can't give you a precise answer this evening. What I can say is that depending on the decision this evening, we can start work now, so we can start preparing that evidence in readiness for a comprehensive review.
Thanks, Deborah.
Yes, I think that the timescales are too tight. Even if we had all the time in the world and all the money in the world, I think the costs of this council would be inordinate. Looking to the Section 151 officer to agree that financially we probably couldn't support going it alone at this point.
Chairman, you've got an email reserve set up for the plan, so provision has been made for that review. Obviously, it'd be cheaper if we're doing a partial review because obviously there's less work, less costs involved. You've got a reserve which has got just under £250,000 there, which is sufficient reserve to cover a portion of the large cost before. So obviously, you don't know what that exact cost will be, but you're well protected for that portion cost. And it's shared jointly for yourselves.
If we go with this proposal, that is. Yes. So I think the dangers of going it alone wouldn't be achievable, both in time or money. And the first time I've ever heard Councillor Krause the humble pie. So I can make it proposal that we don't recommendation.
I will now second that proposal. Basically, we need to look at the North Devon as the economic region, which is Northern Devon. We are working with Torridge District Council on a number of projects. We've got some things facing our region where we need to actually make sure that the local plan is fit for purpose. One example of that is the floating offshore wind. That is going to bring a big major influx into our area, you know, maybe on the scale of Hinkley Point C. You know, when we had that presentation here where councillors were all invited to, because it's all about the supply chain. So it might not just be the infrastructure; it's everything that goes to goes to support that, and also the housing needs of our local communities. It's really big. It will give us an opportunity to refine our local plan so it meets today's needs, and also looks after our environment, which is very important to where we live, and also our farming industry and all that infrastructure moving forward. So I'm happy to second the proposal that we go ahead with filtering. As set out in 2.1.
Thanks,
Joe. With jocularity there, when it came to beat it, I shall stop doing that immediately. All it was, I know we're not talking figures. Councillor Bush has touched upon figures, but you've got 234k in reserve. I know you can't give a figure, but are you content? Are you optimistic, or are you going to give us one of those big presentations saying that the end of the world is nigh at some point in the future?
The latter. Please start looking at the presentation. The reserve we set up was based on the shared cost of the last review. Obviously, we increased that from where we were from last time. As was originally pointed out, obviously, if we went alone, that cost would be significantly higher. So, based on the reserve we have, The shared cost, obviously, that come about with doing it joint storage makes perfect sense to go that route. I'm happy that deserves sufficient.
Okay.
If obviously it comes in higher, we would have to bring that back to members in terms of making provision deserves to additional funds. At the moment, I'm content that deserves.
Thank you.
Councillor Davies.
Thank you very much. Perhaps I've missed it, but Torridge don't know what way we're going to choose, although they will have seen our recommendation. It says in the report that they want to do a comprehensive review. Is that inclusive of us, or do we have to then seek their permission for inclusion in one comprehensive review?
Chair, at a point, can I just say, so I've had a long conversation today with Councillor Hicks, who is the incoming chair from the Torridge side, and he is really, really keen that we carry on working together. And he says his council feel, his fellow councillors feel exactly the same as well.
And the recommendation from their full council was to proceed with a joint comprehensive review of the plan.
Joint.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Davies just asked the question I was going to ask. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, Councillor Davies' question. If it was answered, I wasn't clear. Do we have to go back to them for another for this to be decided?
No.
This the final decision.
Yeah. If we concur, yeah, then we move forward with the joint plan.
Okay. A mover by Councillor Bushell, a seconder by Councillor Roux. All in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you, carried. Item 14, performance and financial management, question 2, 2023-24, pages 29 to 84. Report of the Policy Development Committee, Councillor Spears.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I move to receive the report of the Policy Development Committee held on the 16th November 2023.
Thank you. And item B, report meeting of the Strategy and Resources Committee. Councillor Room, please.
Madam Chair, move the report of the meeting holder by the Strategy and Resources Committee, pages 85 to 86.
Any questions on those reports from members at all, please? Okay, can I have a mover then, please? All right. Seconder, please. Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 16, 15. Sorry. Mid-year Treasury Management Report 2023-24. Report by Head of Governance to the Strategy and Resources Committee on the 6th of November 2023. Item A, Councillor Spears, report to the Policy Development Committee.
Thank you, Chair. I move to receive the report of the Policy Development Committee held on the 16th of November 23.
Thank you. In item B, report of meeting of the Strategy Resources Committee, Councillor Roux, please.
I move that we receive the report of the Strategy and Resources Committee held on the 6th of November 2023.
Thank you. Any questions? Have a seconder, please. Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 16. Schemes of Members' Allowance 2023-24, 2024-25 and 2025-26, pages 103 to 130. Report by Chief Executive Miles.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. As you know, each year we set allowances for members, and in setting those allowances, you have to have regard to the findings of the Independent Remuneration Panel, which meets every 4 years. That panel met in 2022 and it made a number of recommendations. And just focusing on the recommendation in relation to the basic allowance first, they recommended two things. The first thing was that the allowance for last year, 22-23, should be increased by 4.04%, which at that time was the equivalent to the average pay award for staff that had been awarded for that year. And their second recommendation was that the basic allowance be increased to what they called an aspirational level over the course of the next 3 years, commencing 23-24. Now, that first recommendation to increase in 22-23 was dealt with in January. Members resolved to increase the allowance for that particular year by 4.04. But at that time, members decided to put off whether to increase allowances to that aspirational level until the new council were in situ, and that's you guys, because it was felt it was much fairer for that decision to be passed to the new council. The basis of the recommendations by, thank you, Mr. Council Price, the basis of those recommendations by the independent remuneration panel was that North Devon councillors were perceived at being at a low level compared to other similar councils. And I think the report sets out that we're in the lower quartile for councils in the South West. And their view was that to attract councillors coming in every 4 years at elections, to recompense councillors adequately for the amount of work involved, there should be that increase in allowances. What they did say, however, was that they felt that increasing it to that aspirational level in one hit, in 1 year, was probably too much, and so they were recommending staggering it over the 3 years. The gist of the recommendations in relation to setting that aspirational level were that the basic allowance would be increased by a flat rate applied each year, as well as an increase which was linked to the staff pay award. And in practice, for the current year, 23-24, if you adopted that recommendation, the allowance would be our current basic allowance, which is 5,171, plus a flat rate of £250, plus the staff increase, which we now know to be 3.88% on average. And that would give a total for this year of 5,631. In the following year, 24-25, the increase would take that 5,631 as the base. It would increase it by another £250, and then whatever the staff award was for that particular year on top of that. And then in 25-26, it would then take the current allowance, whatever that was, and increase it by a flat rate of £140 plus the staff increase as well. So it's difficult to say exactly what the financial implications are, because we don't know what the staff increases are each particular year. But what we can say is that increasing it by those flat rates each year, just on its own, for 23-24 would be an additional cost of 12,755. But we've got provision to cover that in the budget if that's the option that members go for. The impact of the £250 increase in 24-25 would be another £12,810. And the £140 increase recommended in the following year would be an additional 7,282. So in your report on the papers you've got, there are two recommendations in relation to, two options in relation to the basic allowance. It is to adopt the recommendations of the independent remuneration panel, which are pretty much set out. But the other alternative is to increase the basic allowance by whatever is the higher of either the flat rate of £250 or £140, depending on which year we're in, and the staff annual increase. Again, it's quite difficult to quantify what those costs would be, but what I've set out in relation to the flat rate increases should hopefully give an indication. They also made some recommended changes to the special responsibility allowance. Most of the SRAs, they decided to leave the same. So the chairs' allowances, vice chairs, group leaders, vice chairs and lead members. But in relation to the group leaders, they've made a recommendation that each group leader should get a minimum of 10% of the basic allowance for being a group leader. And then on top of that, there should be an increase in relation to the size of each particular group. And the table that's set out in the report sets that out here. The recommendations are set out in the paper. They are set out in paragraphs 2.1.1 through to 2.1.7. But bear in mind you have a choice over which option to go for a basic allowance. And that those two choices are set out in 2.1.3. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but it is really over to members to take a decision on which option to go for.
Having listened to Mark and also having read through the proposals, I propose that we take the lower of the independent panel recommendations, that is option 2, and have the £250 without the pay award. I think there's many reasons for this, one of which is that we then know what we're budgeting for in the next few years, and with the finance department are not held on the wings of the unions and things like that to make sure that the allowances are set. I think it's a very fair amount to have. This amount will recompense councillors who have to take time off work. And I know there are several councillors in this room that do take time off work to fulfil council duties. And hopefully it will also help to attract a more diverse selection of councillors in the future. I think it's the right and proper thing to do to take the lower amount. And I think that we have a panel to advise us on this. And we would be in a position not to listen to their advice.
Can I just clarify the motion, if I may? We've got two options. Option 1 is the one which is fully accepting the recommendations from the independent remuneration panel, is the flat rate increase plus the staff award. And then option 2 is increasing the basic allowance by the larger of either the flat rate or the staff award, whichever is the greater.
It's option 2.
Option 2.
Yes, Davies.
Thank you for that clarification, because I was option 2. Thank you for your report, because it is actually very detailed. But there is a lovely table on page 123 that lays the figures very bare, so we can see the comparison between option 1 and 2. I also think it's the right thing to do to take the lower of the two options. And it's good to have the recommendation from the independent review panel, and really to remind members that you don't have to take your allowance if you're in any way uncomfortable about an increase or any of your allowance at all. But fully support Councillor Walker's recommendation to accept option 2. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Councillor Bushell.
I thought before being controversial, I would listen to all of the speakers. I take on board Councillor Walker's comments about planning budgets, but we're still in the middle of a lifestyle crisis, living crisis. Only last week, we wasted some officers' time because they feared that not enough councillors were going to turn up to the committee, so they used their time rallying councillors to attend. We also saw the number of councillors who didn't do the mandatory training until it came before governments to sanction them. So I wonder whether the public would be happy on councillors giving themselves a deal for the next 3 years on a performance they may or may not approve of, that we've seen so far in this term. We're not allowed to do performance-related pay rises, but I think that the public should know who thinks they've done enough to have a pay rise. So therefore, I would ask that we have a recorded vote on this. So we vote with our consciences. If we think we've worked hard so far in this term, we can vote for this option. if we think that the public might feel too much of a squeeze at the moment and we sympathise with them, we may vote against that. But it stands that I would like to record a vote on this piece.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I think Councillor Bushell raises an important point, and we are limited in the way that we can we can reward or on actual effort and actual attendance. There's no way of actually factoring that in. So I think it's a valid point that we should at least record the names of how we operate against that.
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, I take on board what Councillor Bushell has said, but I actually believe that by taking option 2, we wouldn't be doing what was suggested. There is no mechanism for rewarding or otherwise councillors for their attendance at meetings and the work they put in. And in actual fact, I would imagine most of us as councillors couldn't actually immediately quantify the amount of our time and our own resources that we are using to support ourselves as councillors. And yes, we are in the midst of cost of living crisis, which means that we don't want to have any councillor who feels that they have to give up being a councillor because they can't afford to be one. And I think that's important to remember that yes, we are councillors, but we are also human beings and also living through the cost of living crisis.
Councillor Peter Lieber.
Thank you, Chair. As a new councillor and as somebody who was involved in an election campaign with a political party, I know how difficult it is to find people who are trying to hold down full-time jobs to stand as councillors. A number of people said they were very interested in being a councillor. Tried to talk to them about the amount of time that it would take and the allowance that was available, and people said they couldn't afford it. But on the other hand, we are in the middle of a cost of living crisis, and we do have to be mindful of the message that we that we give to members of the public. So I think option 2 treads a sort of middle ground, and I think is showing that we are mindful of the cost of living crisis, but at the same time, we do need to recompense members for the time that they take out work. The other reflection as a new councillor is that an awful lot of my time as a councillor is taken up not in the committee room, and it's important for us to attend committees and to see the work of the council go on, but I don't want members of the public to run away with the idea that that's all we do. I think all of us have got very heavy casework loads, which is what we were elected to deal with.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Lieber has just said almost everything I said. That I would like to say, Councillor Bushell, I will try to time my stroke more conveniently next time so I can attend more meetings. I do apologise, but I just wanted to add to Councillor Lieber's excellent point that we did see an unfortunate situation in the last the parish elections where I think only where 75% of parishes did not have enough candidates to vote. We need to be encouraging people to be councillors. This is a minor way of encouraging people to be councillors, but we have a little deficit where we need to get more people interested in joining councils, be it a district, parish, or county. This is something towards them.
Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Yeah, just very briefly, I didn't think we were here to be measuring our performances. We moved a very sensible motion for option 2, as Councillor Lieber said, treads the middle ground and appears to me entirely sensible. And my own performance and other people's performance shouldn't be measured by how many hours or not I was there in a meeting. Casework, moving projects forward, whatever that may be, takes effort and time. We're all here. We should all be working for the best for our ward and for North Devon Council. Let's focus on that. Let's move forward. And please, option 2.
Councillor Norman.
Thank you. As Chair of Governance, I fully support option 2. I think we should support external bodies' recommendations. We got 2. I'm very happy having a name vote on top of that. So I'm going to suggest that anyone that votes against this, that shouldn't take the actual allowances. The allowances are available on the website. We can see people take the allowances. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Milton.
Well, it's a difficult one, isn't it? When you're looking at something like this, talking about how you're safe. And that's the reality of it. Might as well be realistic. But I feel there's a real danger here if we're not careful. That what we do is we ultimately devalue the value of the councillors sat in this room. And actually, everyone puts an awful lot of time, an awful lot of unseen time and effort into doing what they do and representing the wards in which they were elected. So I think it is important that they're recompensed adequately. There has been a panel that has looked at this. It's not ourselves to determine the figures here. It is appropriate that we, I think, look at a reasonable level of recompense. And actually what that does in my mind is puts a level of moral responsibility on every one of us here to feel that we're using that allowance we've got to the very best of our ability to represent the people in our ward. So I feel quite comfortable from my point of view that I will support option 2.
Thank you very much. Councillor Musgrave.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think Councillor Walker made some very valid points, so thank you for that. And I'd like to say to Councillor Bushell that I am one of those who didn't complete all their mandatory training. County councillor, I sit on quite a large number of committees at the county, and that was the reason why I was unable to complete all of the training, and I apologise for that, but I don't think that I need to explain myself as not working hard enough for the people that I serve.
Yeah, thank you. Well, a bit of a point of order, really, Chair. I think start with, I think just if you wish, your vote again, ask for vote against or for if you wish to. I mean, I did do an awful lot of work at this and look at this because, you know, like I said, I don't think any of us, you know, we want to be fair, don't we? We want to be fair to the public. But the reality is we councillors aren't immune to the cost of living crisis the same as everybody else. And I have sort of looked at the figures across Devon, and you're quite right that we are sort of, we're a fifth out of the 7 for basic allowance. We're actually rock bottom for lead members. You know, we only pay 2,585 and Teambridge pay 8,631, and even the next one up, you know, West Devon pay 4,194. So, you know, we're £1,500 below the lowest in Devon for that, and the leader of the council is also below mid-table. So, you know, I think we have done an awful lot of work to try and minimise the cost to the public, and you know, that's the reason that I will support the recommendation. Always with a heavy heart, but I think my real point is, you know, anybody can ask for their vote to be recorded, whether that be for or against, I believe. So we can crack on.
Yeah, thanks. Last time this was discussed, I recall Councillor Bushell making a very similar statement, saying the ultra consistent position, which is commendable. At that meeting, it was discussed that it was possible for anyone to not take any raise in allowances, and I wondered, one, if you had taken that raise that you were supposed to, and two, if you would like performance-related system, how you would do that. There's any suggestions, maybe an extra bonus 50 quid for an gynecologist?
Right, thank you. Okay, we had a mover and a seconder for a recorded vote. All in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, Chair. 5.
Thank you. All those against?
That's more than my Chair, so that's lost.
That's lost, Chair. Yeah, so it's an ordinary vote. So we're just doing an ordinary vote then for option 2. All in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Anyone against option 2? No. Anyone abstaining? Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item 17, proposed dissolution of part of South West Joint Committee, pages 131 to 134. And Miles to report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. The part of the South West Joint Committee was originally set up to try and push forward with a devolution deal for the whole of Devon and Somerset. And over a period of time, its usefulness has now diminished to the point where the Somerset authorities got sidelined by the unitary bid and ultimately have turned into a unitary council. And the devolution deal that was originally planned for Somerset and Devon went off the agenda, now has come back on the agenda, but for Devon only, now excluding. In the time that it's been set up, it has led on a number of sort of regional strategies, such as the productivity strategy, but in effect isn't now active. So the last couple of meetings that were called of the committee, they were incorrect because the constituent councils didn't attend. The consensus across the region is that it's now served its purpose, and there's little point keeping a committee going if it's not going to be have any work to do. And so all councils have been asked to pass resolutions or consider resolutions as to whether it should be dissolved. And the effect of if eight constituent authorities pass those resolutions, then it will be automatically dissolved. And the recommendation before you today is that we serve notice of our withdrawal from that committee. There is about 40,000, I think, left in the kitty. Every authority chipped in to maintain the admin costs, etc. There's about 40,000 left in the committee, in the kitty, and that will be divvied up.
Can we get back to item 6?
That will be divvied up to the constituent authorities in the proportions in which they paid into it. So there will be a small financial comeback for the council, but in effect, the committee has served its purpose. It's served its purpose well, but is now ready for dissolution, I feel. So that is the recommendation, Chair.
Madam Chair, I go along with the recommendation set out in 2.1 of the report that the council agrees to serve notice of its withdrawal and that the Art of the South West Joint Committee be dissolved on 31st of December 2023. We're already I've been part of correspondence that everybody else is going to do this, so I think we'd be at odds.
Seconded.
So that's that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to second the motion.
Thank you. Did anyone else wish to speak? Okay, then. Right, we have a mover, we have a seconder. All in favour?
Unless you see John Hart, happy.
Against? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. Item 18, I'm passing over to Vice Chair Councillor Walker.
Okay, item 18 is to consider the appointment of the lead member of the Waste and Recycling Joint Base Council, David Knight. The recommendation is that Councillor Julie Hunt be appointed as lead member of the Waste and Recycling Joint Base Council, David Knight. Any questions? Councillor, please. Or you've got a question?
Yep, I'd like to move the motion. Since I've known Councillor Hunt, both on Town Council and now on District Council, I know she's a long-standing and experienced councillor. She comes from a background where working in a high-pressure environment is something that she's quite used to managing. And I think she'd be an excellent replacement for Councillor Knight, who's unfortunately had to stand down for the role.
Second, please.
Chair, could I just say something? And it may sound a bit flippant when I start. Julie, it's nothing personal. You know, I've known you a long time. My issue is about how we're going to make all this work. Now, today we've had the autumn statement, and the Speaker intervened on 2 or 3 occasions to make sure that the debate was carried on properly. And I've got an issue about, we've got 6 lead members, and 2 of them now won't be on the strategy committee. So we've got the chairman and vice chairman of the council who sit in the chair, can actually control the meetings, control the debate. You know, I'm just thinking about, you know, we need, and I'm looking at Chris Norman, I think governance perhaps ought to look at this, because my view is the lead members should be on the strategy committee. We keep talking about the lead members having a more prominent role in presenting reports and things. And I think that's the only way it can work. And I don't think it's fair on you, Chair, to end up with a full council. People will be picking on your portfolio if we're not careful. You know, so what I'm really saying is that can we have a think about this between the group leaders and perhaps perhaps Chris from governance committee, because I think, you know, I think the same applies. Helen comes to most strategy committees anyway. So, you know, I've got no problem with all the individuals. What I'm worried about is process and making sure. We went back to a committee-led system, and I was very involved. Like Ken was one of the great architects of it and helped make it happen. And the idea was to make sure everybody was more involved. So it is about that, and having members being accountable and us being comfortable when challenging them. So it's a procedural point rather than anything else, Chair and Vice Chair.
I'd just like to make a point actually, because I'm new chair till March, and then I've only got 2 more full councils to do.
I was just going to say, something came to mind as Malcolm was speaking just then, that actually what you've just done now, handed over to the vice chair that item. If there was any questions when it came on to waste and recycling, you hand over for that item to the vice chair, and then we could question you, whatever we are, you being having a casting vote, if you like, or whatever. I don't know, but maybe I take Malcolm's point that governance should have a look at it to see what we can do. But like you say, you're only there for another 2 council meetings anyway, possibly.
Happy to support Councillor Price's thoughts. I will discuss it with our legal team for the next day. And I'm so pleased that for now we swapped roles with that element in the meeting. Thank you.
No, my friends.
Yeah, all those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Louisa, I'm checking. That's the your one. Oh, it's 4, yeah. Sorry, you get your hand up. I picked up a bit long, sorry.
Thank you very much. Okay, lovely, thank you. Item 19, appointments to committees 2023-24. To consider and approve changes to the appointments of members to the following committees for 2023-24. A, Joint Planning Policy Committee to consider the appointment of Councillor Helen Walker to replace Councillor David Knight on the Joint Planning Policy Committee for 2023-24. Councillor Ruth.
I'll move.
Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Well, remember that,
Item B, Policy Development Committee to consider the appointment of Councillor Peter Lever to replace Councillor David Knight on the Policy Development Committee 2023-24. Do I have a proposer?
Move.
Thank you. Seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item C, Strategy and Resources Committee to consider the appointment of Councillor Caroline Lever to replace Councillor Peter Lever on the Strategy and Resources Committee for 2023-24. Do I have a proposer?
No.
Thank you. Seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 20, minutes of committees. Councillors recommend to note the schedule of committee minutes and approval recommendations as listed below. And I would like to do these on block if everyone's happy with that. Thank you. Senator, thank you very much. Yes, sorry, could you stand up, please? Thank you.
Oh, yeah, duty error.
That's
on site meeting we had done at Brinswood. It says on that one that I attended and also give my apologies. I didn't attend. Only teaching meeting me.
Move with that amendment.
All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you very, very much. Members, I'll close the meeting. Thank you.